Capricorns are often misunderstood. They're painted as cold, distant, work-obsessed, maybe even a little too serious for their own good. But if you've ever truly known a Capricorn, really known one, you'll realize there's a whole world beneath that calm, controlled surface. A world of quiet strength, deep ambition, surprising loyalty, and yes, emotions they rarely let anyone see. But here's the parts most people miss. Not all Capricorns are the same. In fact, depending on your exact birth date, your Capricorn personality can shift, sometimes drastically. Early Capricorns, born just as the sun enters the sign, often carry a much different energy than those born in mid or late January. The stars don't copy and paste personality traits. They sculpt them day by day. That's what this video is about. We're breaking down the 6 core Capricorn personalities, each one tied to a range of dates within the season. And believe us, you'll want to see where you land. Because once you hear it, it just might explain why you've always felt a little different from the other Caps you know. This is Secret of the Zodiac, where we decode the truths behind the signs, not just the surface traits, but the deeper patterns hidden in the cosmos. So before we dive in, do this for yourself. Subscribe to the channel and tap that like button if you've ever related to the ambition, the emotional self-control, or the relentless drive that defines Capricorn energy. All right, let's begin with the first Capricorn personality, the one born at the very start of the season. These are the people who don't wait for permission, who quietly build empires while others are still drafting plans. Number 1, the Stoic Visionary, born December 22nd to 26th. Let's start where Capricorn season begins, December 22nd to 26th. Those born in these first few days carry the rawest, most distilled essence of what it means to be a Capricorn. If the sign had a mission statement, these people live it. They're the type of person who never raises their voice in a meeting, but somehow ends up running the whole thing a year later. You won't always see them coming, because they don't announce their plans. They just make moves, quiet ones, strategic ones, moves that others only recognize when the impact becomes impossible to ignore. The Stoic Visionary is defined by their ability to see the long game. While others chase fast wins, they're mapping out the next 5 years, 10 years, maybe even the rest of their life. There's no need for attention or applause. In fact, they avoid the spotlight. Recognition is irrelevant if the work isn't excellent. And for them, excellence isn't optional. It's the only standard. You might notice these Capricorns in childhood. They're the kids who seem older than they are, like they've already lived a life or two before. They may not be the loudest on the playground, but they're already organizing the game. There's a kind of steady confidence in how they move, like they already know who they are, or at least trust that they'll figure it out without needing anyone's approval. And as they grow up, their stoicism becomes a shield. Not because they don't feel, but because they don't want to be ruled by what they feel. Emotions for them are private territory. They experience them deeply, but don't often show them. It's not about repression, it's about control. And that sense of control, over time, energy, and output, is what allows them to accomplish what others only dream about. But what people don't see, and this matters, is that the Stoic Visionary is often carrying weight no one else notices. Pressure they won't talk about, expectations they place on themselves that can border on punishing. They don't just want to succeed, they feel like they have to. Not for fame, not for validation, but because anything less feels like a betrayal of their potential. This can be both a gift and a burden. On one hand, they're the type of person who can quietly climb to the top of whatever field they choose. On the other, they can be incredibly hard on themselves, often feeling like they haven't done enough, even when they've accomplished more than most. Relationships with this type of Capricorn can be complex. They love deeply, but express it through action more than words. They might not say, "I love you," every day, but they'll remember your favorite tea, check your car tires, or stay up researching how to fix that thing you mentioned once in passing. Love for them is demonstrated through consistency, loyalty, and unwavering support, not flowery speeches. But here's the secret they rarely let slip. Even Stoic visionaries crave softness. They want to feel safe enough to not be the strong one all the time. They want someone who sees their inner world, not just their achievements. They may never say it directly, but they want to be seen, really seen, and loved anyway. Career-wise, they gravitate toward leadership, even if they resist traditional titles. They don't chase power for ego. They step into it because they know they can handle the responsibility. They're often self-employed, or at least the kind of employee that others rely on, like a second manager. If they feel limited or micromanaged, they'll eventually break free and build something of their own. And it'll be solid, sustainable, smart, because nothing they do is sloppy or rushed. The Stoic visionary is the Capricorn you call when you need help moving forward. They won't sugarcoat things. They won't coddle you, but they'll offer a plan. They'll break the chaos into steps, and they'll be the first to help you rebuild brick by brick if everything falls apart. What makes them truly powerful isn't their ambition. It's their ability to stay grounded while climbing, to keep their principles intact while navigating a world full of shortcuts, to move slowly when the world demands speed because they know real growth takes time, and they're not afraid to wait for what's worth it. If this sounds like you, if you've always been the planner, the builder, the calm in the storm, then you might just be a Stoic visionary. And if you're nodding along, now might be a good moment to recognize yourself, not in terms of how much you've done, but in how much strength it takes to keep showing up every day with that quiet, steady fire inside you. But not every Capricorn is cut from this cloth. Some are dreamers who turn ideas into empires. And the next Capricorn personality shows us exactly what that looks like. Number 2, the disciplined dreamer, born December 27th to 30th. If the Stoic visionary builds the foundation, then the disciplined dreamer, born between December 27th and 30th, is the one who paints the future on top of it. These Capricorns are something special. They live in the space where logic meets imagination, where bold visions get turned into structured plans, and creativity doesn't float away, it lands. Hardworking? Absolutely. But there's something more whimsical beneath their surface, something you might not expect from a Capricorn. Unlike the more rigid types, they dream big. The difference? They know how to make those dreams real. Picture someone who journals obsessively but also builds spreadsheets for each idea. Someone who writes poetry at night and wakes up early to crush a goal list. That's the duality of the disciplined dreamer. They're romantics in disguise, lovers of beauty, possibility, and inner growth. But they're grounded. They don't just want to feel something meaningful, they want to achieve something meaningful. These are the Capricorns who look like traditional success stories from the outside. Degrees, promotions, structure. But if you sit with them long enough, you'll hear about their secret book project, their dream to travel and teach, or the startup they've been building in silence. Their lives are driven by more than survival or ambition. There's a longing to create, to impact, to leave behind more than just numbers and titles. You may catch glimpses of this early in their lives. As children, they're the ones who take their hobbies seriously. They might turn their drawings into a portfolio, or their childhood lemonade stand into a spreadsheet-backed mini enterprise. There's play, but it's intentional. There's passion, but it's paired with planning. They want their lives to mean something, and they start making that blueprint early. Emotionally, the disciplined dreamer can be a bit of a contradiction. They feel deeply, but they compartmentalize. They don't show vulnerability easily, not because they don't trust you, but because they've trained themselves to be strong. They're often the ones carrying the emotional weight of others, playing the responsible friend or the one who always seems fine. But inside they're thinking, questioning, sometimes hurting, and always evolving. What sets them apart from the more stoic Capricorns is their inner restlessness. They crave more than material success. They want meaning, whether it's through art, relationships, travel, or building something bigger than themselves. They're not content with just climbing the ladder. They want to know why they're climbing. And if that why disappears, they'll tear the whole thing down and rebuild something that aligns with their soul. Relationships with the disciplined dreamer can feel like slow, burning magic. They don't fall easily, and definitely not recklessly. But once they do, they give with everything they have. They're the type to write you long letters but never send them, to support you in ways you didn't even realize you needed. They might not always say what they feel, but they'll show it in how fiercely they show up for you. They're the builder and the believer, the one who wants to grow with you, not just beside you. In work and life, they're planners, but flexible ones. They don't just want structure for structure's sake. They want structure that supports freedom. That's a key difference. A rigid life makes them feel trapped, but a life without goals feels pointless. So they walk this careful line, building systems that let them dream, and dreaming with the discipline to follow through. It's a rare balance, and it's what makes them so magnetic when they're truly aligned. When out of alignment, though, they can struggle. They may fall into cycles of over-planning and underdoing, or worse, they may silence their dreams entirely because it's not practical, becoming overly conventional, overly corporate, or overly self-critical. They might numb out their creative side and drown in to-do lists, thinking that's what they're supposed to do. But deep down, they know better. They know they're meant for more. Not more in the material sense, but more in the soulful one. To thrive, the disciplined dreamer needs both freedom and structure. They need to make room for their imagination without letting it run away from them. They need to let their heart speak and then let their mind build the plan to honor what it says. They're not just here to perform. They're here to create legacies that feel aligned, art that speaks, businesses that uplift, lives that mean something. You might find them writing a book while running a company, or designing a wellness app that helps others feel seen, or quietly raising children with radical compassion and deep structure. However it looks, they're always building, but not just for survival, for soul. If you were born in these last days of December, and you've always felt a tug of war between your creative side and your inner CEO, this might be why. You're not meant to choose, you're meant to integrate, and when you do, you become unstoppable. But Capricorn doesn't stop with dreamers. Some Capricorns carry the cool confidence of born leaders, not because they chase authority, but because they embody it. Number 3, the cool commander, born December 31st to January 3rd. There's a distinct shift in Capricorn energy right at the end of December and the start of January. If you were born between December 31st and January 3rd, you might already know you're built a little differently. This is the domain of the cool commander, the type of Capricorn who walks into a room and somehow takes control without needing to say much at all. They don't do drama. They don't chase chaos. They don't need attention, but attention often finds them anyway. The cool commander has an unmistakable presence. It's in how they hold themselves, how they listen before they speak, how they can lead without forcing it. There's a calm, focused intensity in these Capricorns that can be both comforting and a little intimidating. You feel like they've got it handled, and most of the time, they do. These are the Capricorns who embody authority without ever needing to raise their voice. They're not trying to be the boss. They just are. They don't manipulate or dominate. They manage quietly, confidently, with precision. If they do speak, you'll notice people tend to stop and listen. There's no wasted energy, no performative leadership, just real direction, real presence, and real follow-through. What makes the cool commander so compelling is that they mix Capricorn's famous practicality with a coolness that borders on unshakable. They stay composed under pressure, make decisions with clarity, and handle responsibility like it's second nature. People trust them, often more than they trust themselves. And here's the thing, they usually earn that trust. They show up when it matters. They remember the details. They don't make promises they can't keep. Their consistency builds credibility, and over time, that credibility turns into real influence, the kind that can't be bought or faked. But don't mistake this for being emotionless. Cool commanders feel. They just rarely let emotions override their logic. They've likely trained themselves, sometimes through hard experiences, to prioritize action over reaction. They know that in times of crisis, someone has to stay calm. Someone has to think, and more often than not, that someone ends up being them. Underneath that strong exterior, though, lies a deeply reflective inner world. These Capricorns think a lot about purpose, about people, about what kind of life they want to lead. They may not talk about it often, but they crave meaning just as much as they crave structure. They're often searching for alignment between their values, their goals, and the roles they're playing in the world. And when something feels off, they feel it in their bones. They may not freak out or fall apart, but they'll quietly start planning an exit strategy, a career pivot, a new system, a better boundary. Cool commanders don't stay stuck for long. They regroup, re-strategize, and move forward. In relationships, they're steady partners, reliable, loyal, grounded, but emotional expression doesn't always come easy. They show love more through protection and presence than through vulnerability. They'll make sure your car has the gas, your bills are paid, and your goals are supported, but they may not say, "I miss you," out loud. Not because they don't feel it, but because they've learned to show love through action, not words. Their challenge, in love and in life, is learning how to soften without losing their edge, to let people see the person behind the role. Because while they're incredible leaders, they're also human, and sometimes they need to be held too. Professionally, the cool commander thrives in systems. They love efficiency, clarity, and well-executed plans. They might gravitate toward leadership roles in business, law, government, or even medicine. Any space where logic meets structure and their ability to stay calm under pressure becomes a superpower. They make decisions with their head, but they're always carrying a quiet moral compass underneath it all. And when they're aligned, they lead teams, build visions, and set standards that lift others higher. They're the manager everyone respects, the founder who builds companies with integrity, the partner you can depend on. They lead because they can, not because they have to. Still, their journey isn't without internal battles. Cool commanders often carry an invisible weight, the pressure to always be composed, capable, in control. And that weight can become lonely. When you're the one others depend on, who do you lean on? Many of them have to learn the hard way that strength isn't just about holding everything together. Sometimes real strength is knowing when to let go, of control, of perfection, of the need to always be on. When they do, they unlock something softer, deeper, a leadership that isn't just efficient, but also human, a life that's not just organized, but lived. If you were born in this early January window, and you've always felt like the calm one, the collected one, the one others lean on, chances are you're a cool commander, and your challenge and your magic lies in learning how to lead yourself with the same grace and strength you offer others. But not all Capricorns command from above. Some quietly rewrite the rules from within. They don't shout, they subvert. And those born in the next stretch of Capricorn season, they're the rule breakers disguised as rule followers. Number 4, the grounded rebel, born January 4th to 7th. Capricorns are often boxed in by assumptions, conservative, traditional, obsessed with rules and reputation. But if you've ever met a Capricorn born between January 4th and 7th, you know that stereotype doesn't always fit. These are the grounded rebels, the ones who look like they're following the rules, but deep down, they're already reprogramming the system. They are the disruptors dressed in professionalism, the iconoclasts with clean resumes, the visionaries hidden behind calm eyes. Don't let their quiet demeanor fool you. These Capricorns are here to restructure the world from the inside out. While others push for change with chaos, the grounded rebel takes a different approach. They observe first. They learn the system, memorize its weaknesses, then redesign it to work better, smarter, fairer, freer. These people are strategic change makers. They know that to truly shift the structure, you have to understand it intimately, which is why so many of them appear, at first glance, to be perfectly by the book. But give them time. Talk to them long enough. You'll catch that spark in their voice, that quiet resistance, that need to challenge assumptions and rebuild what no longer serves. They are not loud. They don't post long rants. They don't scream for attention. But they will create systems that change lives. They will start movements disguised as brands, redefine leadership in their workplaces, or slowly challenge outdated traditions in their families. all while staying grounded, rooted in values, purpose, and an almost unshakable inner compass. This is what makes them different from other rebels. They're not impulsive. They're not reckless. They're not fighting for rebellion's sake. They're fighting for what's right and doing it in a way that actually works. In relationships, the grounded rebel can be surprisingly romantic, not in the flashy, dramatic sense, but in how deeply they believe in partnership as a space for growth. They want relationships with purpose, something that evolves, challenges, and supports. They're attracted to people with strong minds, curious spirits, and a willingness to challenge the status quo. They may not say much in a crowded room, but in one-on-one conversations, they're some of the most compelling, grounded, and insightful voices you'll ever hear. They question norms, they ask better questions, and they have a knack for showing you the world through a clearer, more strategic lens. They tend to have an eye for design, not just in the aesthetic sense, but in the way they structure their lives. Everything has to function well. They crave order, but not in a rigid way, in a purposeful way. Whether they're organizing a closet or a business model, they're always thinking about the why behind the how. And when they feel boxed in by expectations, systems, or even themselves, something shifts. Their rebel side rises. You might not see it coming, but suddenly they're quitting a job, launching a nonprofit, breaking generational cycles, or setting a boundary that flips everything on its head. They don't destroy for the sake of destruction. They disrupt to evolve. There's often a tension inside these Capricorns, a push and pull between their instinct to be reliable and their hunger to be free. And navigating that tension becomes their life's work. They may feel misunderstood, especially when others expect them to play by traditional Capricorn rules. But the truth is, they're not here to play by the rules. They're here to refine them. At their best, grounded rebels are innovators with soul. They bring vision and action together in a rare and powerful balance. They're the employees who shake up toxic cultures without losing their jobs. The friends who tell you the truth you didn't want to hear but needed to. The leaders who prioritize ethics over ego. They're not loud, but they're unforgettable, and they often carry deep inner wisdom. Many of them have endured quiet battles, being the black sheep, the misunderstood sibling, the person who never quite fit into pre-made boxes. But instead of breaking down, they've learned to build their own. They've become architects of their own lives, carving space for authenticity in places where conformity once ruled. This makes them incredible mentors, creatives, and change agents. They see what others miss, they trust what others question, and they move with a kind of grounded boldness that's rare, especially in a world obsessed with speed and noise. Still, their greatest challenge is often internal. They may struggle with the weight of their own expectations, with the fear of disappointing others by choosing a different path, with the guilt of outgrowing the roles they were expected to play. Grounded rebels often walk through identity crises not once, but many times, each time emerging sharper, clearer, freer. And if you're one of them, here's the truth. Your path isn't meant to look like anyone else's. You're not here to blend in. You're here to lead, not from the front of the room, but from the inside of the system, quiet, sharp, strategic, free. As you grow, you'll find more courage to speak, to move, to challenge without fear. And you'll realize that your rebellion was never about burning bridges. It was about building better ones. And you're not alone in this. Because next come the Capricorns who carry the weight of responsibility, like it's wired into their soul. The old souls, the rock-solid ones, the ones who walk through life like they've already lived it before. Number 5, the wise worker, born January 8th to 12th. If you were born between January 8th and 12th, chances are you've been told you're an old soul more than once. There's a deep calmness in your eyes, a sense that you carry more than just your own lifetime's worth of knowledge. That's because you're a wise worker, one of the most grounded and quietly powerful expressions of Capricorn energy. You don't chase chaos. You don't perform for approval. You don't need applause to know your worth. You've built your identity around something deeper: integrity, consistency, and purposeful work. The wise worker doesn't just work hard, they work with intention. They understand that effort without direction is just exhaustion, so they choose their battles carefully. They move with discipline, but not just to achieve more. They move with discipline because they see it as a form of devotion to their values, their people, and their higher goals. You can spot them early in life. They're often the kids who take things seriously, not in a grim way, but in a thoughtful one. They notice things, take mental notes, ask questions that feel too deep for their age. While others are distracted by trends or peer pressure, the wise worker is already thinking about their future, not out of anxiety, but out of instinct. It's like they're wired to build something that lasts. They're not loud leaders, but they're natural anchors. In any group, a family, a team, a relationship, they become the one others turn to when things get messy. Not because they have all the answers, but because they bring a kind of emotional structure. They stabilize the room just by being in it. People often mistake their quiet for shyness, but what they're really doing is observing, assessing, waiting until the right moment to step in with clarity. When they speak, they don't ramble, they don't preach. They speak with weight. Every word earned, every insight shaped by experience, and they've earned it. Because wise workers usually carry a lot. Responsibility has followed them most of their lives. Sometimes it was given freely, other times it was dumped on them without choice. They've been the emotional caretakers, the dependable siblings, the co-workers who picked up the slack, the partners who held everything together. And while they rarely complain, the weight does leave marks. But instead of letting that make them bitter, it makes them wiser. They've learned how to manage pressure, how to stay calm when everything is falling apart, how to push forward even when no one's watching. There's a quiet nobility in how they live, not flashy, not glamorous, but deeply respectable and deeply necessary in a world that often prioritizes noise over substance. In relationships, the wise worker is devoted. They're not the grand gesture type. They're the consistent, solid, emotionally responsible kind. They remember the details, they follow through, they show up when it matters. But more than that, they want to build something with you, a home, a foundation, a future. Love to them isn't about fireworks. It's about growth, safety, and real support. But that doesn't mean they're closed off. In fact, when they feel emotionally safe, they're surprisingly tender. They care deeply, even if they don't always show it in flowery language. Their version of "I love you" might be a meal on your hard day, or fixing that thing you forgot was broken, or listening to you vent at midnight without trying to solve it. They show love through devotion, not drama. Work for the wise worker is not just a means to an end. It's often tied to identity. They need to feel useful, not in a codependent way, but in a soul-driven, purpose-centered way. When they are aligned, they thrive in careers where their efforts translate into visible impact. They're the ones who stay late not for praise, but because they can't stand to leave things half done. They have pride in their work, quiet pride, but pride nonetheless. But this can also become a trap, because their reliability can be exploited. People lean on them too much, expect too much, forget they're human. And the wise worker, in their effort to do the right thing, often lets it happen longer than they should. They can burn out without ever making a sound. They can disappear emotionally while still showing up physically. They can suppress their own needs for so long that they forget what they even are. That's the shadow side of this archetype, the tendency to become so focused on holding everything up that they forget to look up, to check in with their dreams, their joy, their soul. But when they pause, when they reconnect with what actually lights them up, that's when everything changes. Because underneath the steadiness and structure is someone who wants more, not in a greedy way, but in a soulful, human way. More depth, more rest, more time, more beauty, more meaning. They just need to give themselves permission to want it. Wise workers don't need to change who they are. They need to expand into who they've always been beneath the duty, to let their softness coexist with their strength, to let themselves receive as much as they give. Because what they offer the world is sacred, but it shouldn't come at the cost of their own well-being. If you were born during these dates, and you've always felt like the rock in every relationship, if you've struggled to ask for help, if you've felt a quiet sense of pride in doing things well, but also a quiet ache for something more, then you are almost certainly a wise worker, and the world is better because of you, not just for what you do, but for how you show up. Still, Capricorn season isn't done yet, because there's one more type, one more deeply mysterious, quietly powerful version of this sign that often goes unnoticed, but never unseen. They don't just work, lead, or build, they transform. Number 6, the quiet alchemist, born January 13th to 19th. If you've ever met someone who feels ancient and mysterious, the kind of person who sees the world in layers, who transforms pain into poetry and silence into presence, then you've probably met a quiet alchemist. These are the Capricorns born between January 13th and 19th, and they embody the final stretch of Capricorn season with deep introspective magic. They're not loud, they're not in a rush, and they're definitely not chasing the spotlight. But give them space, and they'll quietly shift the entire emotional climate of a room just by being in it. The quiet alchemist isn't trying to change the world with noise. They're changing it with energy, intention, and slow burning truth. These are the Capricorns who carry depth, the kind of depth that only comes from sitting with discomfort, facing inner shadows, and learning to transform instead of run. They are reflective, patient, and wise beyond their years. Often described as old souls, they have a timeless aura, like they've lived 1,000 lives and kept the best lessons from each one. But they don't flaunt this wisdom. In fact, they're often so quiet about their inner world that most people miss just how much they've endured and just how much they understand. What makes the quiet alchemist unique is their ability to take the messiest parts of life, grief, failure, longing, confusion, and turn them into something useful, something beautiful, something others can learn from. They're emotional transmuters. They don't avoid pain. They work with it, mold it, learn from it, and come out stronger, wiser, and somehow softer. They're the kind of people who don't need to prove anything. Their presence speaks. Their actions echo. Their words, when spoken, hit different, because you know they've been earned through experience, not just opinion. And yet many quiet alchemists move through life feeling misunderstood, because they don't operate at surface level. Small talk bores them. Fast answers don't satisfy them. They crave real connection, authenticity, meaning. They want conversations that explore the soul, relationships that evolve over time, and work that aligns with their quiet mission. They often find themselves drawn to healing, teaching, creating, or guiding, but not in obvious ways. A quiet alchemist might be a therapist, a musician, a researcher, a spiritual teacher, a filmmaker, or the one friend you always go to when you need real clarity. They might not say much, but when they do, it changes something in you. Their power isn't in performance, it's in presence. Relationships with them run deep if you're lucky enough to earn their trust. They don't open up quickly. They watch, they listen, they feel. And when they do open their hearts, they offer the kind of love that transforms you. It's not flashy, but it's unforgettable. It's not loud, but it's lasting. They'll see through your masks, hear what you're not saying, hold space for your hardest truths, because they've already held space for their own. But they're not immune to loneliness. Being so inward, so reflective, can sometimes make them feel like they live on the edges of things. Like they're always watching, witnessing, but not always included. They often feel different, and not in a way that feels powerful, but in a way that feels quietly isolating. Their work, then, is to learn that their sensitivity is not a flaw, it's a gift. Their slowness is not laziness, it's intention. Their depth is not weirdness, it's wisdom. When they stop trying to fit and start fully being, something unlocks. They start attracting people, opportunities, and experiences that match their frequency, and their quiet becomes magnetic instead of invisible. The quiet alchemist also has a profound relationship with time. More than any other Capricorn, they feel the ticking of the clock in a spiritual sense. They're deeply aware of how fleeting life is, which makes them cautious about where they spend their energy. They don't waste time on shallow pursuits. They don't fake connections. They don't rush transformation. They honor the process, even when it's slow, painful, or uncertain. And while others may measure life in status or stuff, the quiet alchemist measures it in truth, in growth, in how many moments felt real. That's why you'll find them leaving high-paying jobs to pursue something meaningful, walking away from comfort to chase alignment, choosing solitude over fake connection. They're not running from life. They're refining it, constantly, patiently, powerfully. When out of alignment, they can fall into hiding. They isolate. They overthink. They can become so inward that they forget how to reach out. But even in those dark phases, something is brewing inside them. Growth is happening. Perspective is shifting. And when they re-emerge, they're transformed again. Wiser, clearer, stronger, softer. If you're a quiet alchemist, you may have always felt a little on the outside of things, but that's because you're not here to blend in. You're here to guide, to see, to know what others miss. Your gift isn't your productivity, it's your presence, your ability to reflect and refine, to heal and help, to hold space in a world that moves too fast. And while others might define Capricorn by ambition, you redefine it as inner mastery. You climb, yes, but not toward power. You climb toward peace, toward wholeness, toward becoming someone who turns life's hardest moments into quiet light for others to follow. And now, as we close out this journey through the 6 Capricorn archetypes, there's just one more thing to say, and one more thing to ask. We've walked through 6 sides of Capricorn, not cliches, not stereotypes, but living, breathing energies that speak to who you really are, or who someone close to you is. And if you've made it here to the end, it probably means something clicked. Maybe you recognized yourself. Maybe you recognized someone you love. Maybe you realized Capricorn isn't just one energy, it's a spectrum. Let's rewind for a moment. We started with the stoic visionary, born in the first days of Capricorn season, the builder, the planner, the one who doesn't need noise to make impact, quiet strength, long-term goals, and relentless drive. That's their language. Then came the disciplined dreamer, the ones who hold imagination in one hand and execution in the other. They don't just hope, they build dreams, one practical step at a time. Art and ambition, perfectly balanced. After that, we met the cool commander, born around New Year's, calm, strategic, and sharp. They don't chase leadership, they become it. Always steady, always aware, always 10 steps ahead of the chaos. Then we saw the grounded rebel, the Capricorn, who smiles politely while rewriting every outdated rule. They are the quiet disruptors, the ethical innovators, the ones changing systems from within. No theatrics, just transformation. From there we moved into the soul of Capricorn, the wise worker, loyal, structured, deeply dependable. These are the people who show up over and over again, not for attention, but because they care, because they believe in doing things right. And finally, we found the quiet alchemist, the softest, deepest, most spiritually mature form of Capricorn, the healers, the inner travelers, the ones who feel life deeply and turn every lesson into quiet wisdom that others can follow. 6 personalities, 6 energies, 6 ways to be Capricorn, and yet all of them connected by a core theme: realness. Capricorn doesn't fake, Capricorn doesn't rush, Capricorn doesn't perform for the crowd. Or whether you're ambitious, introspective, rebellious, or gentle, if Capricorn is your sun, your moon, or even just heavy in your chart, you know what it means to carry responsibility like second nature. You know what it means to want to build something solid in a world full of noise. You know what it means to keep going, even when no one's watching. So now, we want to hear from you. Which Capricorn are you? Are you the visionary, the dreamer, the rebel, the anchor, the alchemist? Drop your birth date in the comments, or the type you most relate to. And if you're not a Capricorn, but you love one, tag them. Tell us how these descriptions match or surprise. The Capricorns in your life, let's fill the comment section with real stories, with reflections, with love. We read every single one. And if this video made you feel seen, if you felt like, for once, someone actually got what you've been carrying, then do us a favor. Hit the like button. Subscribe to Secret of the Zodiac. That one click might seem small, but it's everything for a channel like ours. It tells the algorithm that people care about real astrology, not just memes or quick bites, but content that actually says something, that connects, that empowers. Also, don't stop here. We've got more videos breaking down zodiac signs by date, energy, rising signs, moon signs, and how they actually show up in real life. Not everyone born under the same sign is the same. We prove that every week. So scroll through the channel, binge a little, and see what speaks to you. And if you really want to support the work we do, hit the super thanks button. It's a small donation option right here on YouTube that helps us pay for research, editing, scripting, studio time, and the effort we put into making videos like this. Human, deep, consistent. Every dollar counts. Every thank you helps us keep doing what we love, bringing you high-quality astrology every single day. We're not a big media company. We're just a few people obsessed with astrology and storytelling. Supporting us through super thanks means you're not just watching. You're part of this. You're helping keep this work alive. You're helping bring more clarity, more honesty, and more connection to people around the world who are searching for truth in their charts. So whether you can give or not, thank you for watching, thank you for listening, and thank you for being you. We'll be back tomorrow with another sign, another truth, another journey, but for now, your turn. Who are you? What date were you born? What kind of Capricorn are you? We're waiting in the comments.